Hey everybody, this is Jeff from Jeff's Gardening Tips and Jeff's Vegetable Gardening Tips and Containers. Had a couple of questions been put out to me here recently about fertilizers, how you do it. I know I say it and I put it in there, but haven't got many videos of it because you just get into it and sometimes you can't get to it. The first one I use, and this is mainly for smaller stuff. This is a Miracle-Gro. It's a plant food for vegetables and herbs, but it's a more of a water soluble fertilizer. So when you put this fertilizer in to whatever you're using it for, it, as soon as the water hits it, it dissolves and just sinks right into the soil, right into the vegetable and the root. So that's an excellent feeder, but it's not a long-term feeder, and it's not that very strong of a feeder. So in the beginning of the season, like I've told you many times, this is one of the main ones is bone meal, because it has, if you read on here, it's got a lot of nitrogen, which gets your plant going, some phosphate and calcium, and it's about 777. So it's really good for all the nutrients you need when you're first putting your garden together to get it up and going and mixed in. So you got to mix it in with all your soils. See how that average thing. So fertilizing has to be done quite a bit on plants, believe it or not, during times, not hot weather. This is a blood meal. See, that says 1200. So what that's just telling you right there, that's 100% nitrogen. So, and early in the season, and when you're first putting things in, the first thing you want to do is you want to develop the stems and the leaves and everything of your fruits, your bushes. It doesn't matter if it's a fruit bush or a vegetable in your garden. You want to get that stuff all grown and get it up to a certain point. And in my garden right now, everything's probably, the corn's now 7 foot tall, but everything else is up to 3.5 to 4 foot or taller. And it's really getting there, and it's starting to fruit. And what I ended up doing was everything was where it had to do, but the problem is once you get all leafy like that, you trim back like I have. I've trimmed everything back to allow the airflow through the plants, to get everything out of the dirt and anything below that can cause the infections that dead leaves and stems pick up and transfer into the vegetables and fruits. They're all trimmed up, so you got that airflow under there, nothing's touching. The outer straight branches I got rid of on most of it. Tomatoes I got to do a little bit more on, but majority of it's in pretty good shape. One of the big problems is that starts coming in, especially now, is this year we've had an ornament amount of rainfall this year. So we went from me watering early season once a week to twice a week to now it's hot and humid and not raining, and I'll water, and that night it rains 3 inches of rain. You can't tell, it's these pop-up thunderstorms. We're in this pattern now where it seems like every other day we're just getting heavy rain, which is great. You think that's great, everything's growing, but you'll come and you can actually drown your plants. Even though they're above ground and in containers, you can drown them because they're not releasing that water enough. And plus what's happening when you get that much water is it's running through so quick, and now all the amount of feeders you give to it and fertilizers and stuff, except for the long-term ones that are like they're like stones almost, and they slowly dissolve over time. They're great, but they're only like a minor feeder to your system. They're just to get you through things. So the ones you put in that are more water soluble or powder, they're great for everything, but you start getting a couple heavy rains and watering them, it's gone. So it's about every 2 weeks you got to do something. So I move it around. Like I said, 1 minute. One time I'll use blood meal, bone meal in it early on. Then the next time I'll use something like this Dr. Earth, which is a 463, and I'll get a 2.621, which means there's more calcium and lime growth, but that's a powder one, and I just powdered and washed everything in. I'm saying a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. We've had so much rain, I think it probably washed most of it out. Everything's still growing, everything's bushes, it's incredible. But I'm getting a little bit of blossom end rot from all that moisture, and I'm getting a lot of stuff growing, but not getting to size yet. And you think, because we're not getting the sun all the time. So I'm gonna show you a couple things we gotta do with that. Real quick, I had this with me too. I use this and you know, blueberries, strawberries, and all this stuff. And it's a berry food. I'm just trying this year because I normally just use a water soluble fertilizer for my fruits and stuff. And this year I'm just trying it because they're in containers to see how it works. And it's a long term one. I've always used the short term because I've always had June berries, and now I got the everberries, so they grow all summer. So now I'm going to have to fertilize all summer, where before it was mainly just about that June time. And I wanted to get a few things. Hang on there 1 second. I know I threw a couple of these over here. Right. Thank you, everybody. Pick one up. There's two. There's three of them. Here it comes. I just want to get a few things here back here for you to see, so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, when you get these things in your garden, it's essential. You think you might be able to save them and bring them back, you're not going to be able to. So, if you can look at this here, that's blossom rot. See how it's brownish and blackish? This one's even dried out, but that was going to be a nice zucchini. You can see this one here, same thing. It's soft, dried. It's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to die off. And if you leave them in your garden, they'll cause the other ones not to grow. So I took all my, you can see another one here. It's got to be a decent size, and it's just wet, and it's just rotted out. And they'll say a lot of those sometimes are because the pollination between the males and the female flowers and all that. Here, with what's happening is I've had things growing great. I still have, like on my yellow zucchinis and yellow squash, cucumbers. I got a couple cucumbers that long. I haven't had a chance to get them off yet because I was doing other stuff. But what you have to, when you start getting them blossom things, you got to get down there every other day, get out in your garden. You got to just snap them or twist them and get rid of them, because they'll just drain energy and it'll just seep out of there. And not a lot, and it happens to peppers, it happens to tomatoes. So if you're out there thinking, oh my gosh, I can save these tomatoes and leave them on, maybe I'll leave these things on the plants and they'll come back. They won't come back. There's just no way they'll come back because the damage has already been done to them, and they won't come back. And you can read all you want about it. Now, I'm not saying you can't cut that blossom end off there if you want to save that little piece, but I don't do that. And these things aren't any good for seeds, because now the seeds or anything you have inside this are affected for any other time you want to try to grow. So when you're getting this early in the season, when you're getting busted stems going out, or yellowing leaves, or spots on them, bugs real bad, and also especially the rot like you have on these, you want to definitely nip that in the butt and get rid of all that stuff as soon as you possibly can, because it'll affect your plants pretty doggone good, and it'll do damage. And this is a time of season, well, it is not normally raining this much, but it is raining this year, where you're taking advantage of the moisture and the rain's coming in, saying it's great, but you're losing all your vitamins and your fertilizers, because they're just rushing through everything with the amount of water that's coming down on top of what I've ordered. So make sure you keep up with all your fertilizing and essentials you need to do, and get rid of everything that has blood rot on it, and you'll make it through. But the one big thing I did was, blood rot is 99% caused by calcium. And when I say calcium, one of the biggest missing minerals that you grow with is calcium. And calcium in plants is, like, calcium is good for the human body, bones, make you strong, all that. But calcium goes the same way in vegetables. And one of the least recognized things is that if you don't have the calcium you need in there, that doesn't allow it to get up to the stems, grow strong, and not let the branches break, makes them thicker, wholer, just like it would a person. And if you were to take a powdery or a real fine lime and throw it on top of something, you got to mix it with water, you're going to lose a lot of it. Plus, that can kind of burn the plant. So what you do is you use this pelletized garden lime. And it's a slow release lime, but at least it lets you keep the lime flowing to the plant. And that lime has this in here. And if you look at this, there's probably 10 to 15 different things that are in this lime. And I'd say 60% of them all have some type of calcium. calcium oxide, calcium chloride, calcium carbonate equivalent, effective calcium carbonate equivalent. So they all got a certain percentage, but what this really does is it's just giving you calcium. Now, if you're using regular powdered calcium, or you're using some type of calcium like that, that's long term, you got to mix that early in the year into your either ground in the garden or your when you're mixing your stuff together. First, you got to put that in there lightly and let it mix in during that time. But early on, calcium isn't that beneficial. Calcium is beneficial to the soil over the long haul, but it's not beneficial to growing your plants. Once your plants are established, that's when this has got to come in. So right now, they've all been treated 3 times since I planted them back in late April or May, when I put everything in the garden and from the greenhouse that I planted. Everything's had the 3 treatments so far. It's had the lime treatment, it's had the 463 treatment of Mother Earth stuff or whatever it is, and it's had the calcium original treatment of the blood meal and the bone meal. So right now we're right on par. We'll see how this lasts with the rain out here. If it keeps pushing us to record levels of how much rain we've been getting. We'll see if that keeps up or if it slows down a little bit and gets us to more sun. But what they're talking about is we still should have a little more rain, but we're going to go from that right into 94, 95, hot, humid, no rain, and then you have a totally different chemistry and things that have to happen in your garden. It's just, garden is weird. When you do gardening, you don't realize how much there's involved in it. Until you mix all the soil and you do this year after year after year, and after 12, 13 years, every year something's different. Every year. I mean, it's drought, it's rain, it's fertilization, it's insects, it's disease. So I'm by far not an expert or close to anything like that with this stuff, and I never would be. There's people who do this for a living. I'm just saying, you learn, you teach, you investigate, and you learn through others too. And you learn what's good and what's not good. So you have to look ahead of time when you see things starting to happen. When anybody else be like, oh, just leave it go, it'll grow. And you see that blossom rot and stuff, and you see certain things happening. It was on everything that was growing in the garden. Not tons, but 1, 2 on every tree or blossom rot. So I had to go through and get all that stuff off. And I do have some very good growth, great flowering in the garden. And anything I added a little bit more now was the lime on top of everything, just to give it that extra boost of calcium with as much rain. And if you looked up here now, there ain't no sun, there ain't nothing, it's just clouds, so it looks like it's gonna rain every minute, but according to forecast, it's supposed to clear up, and that's what we're hoping for. And we'll keep moving on from then. Like I said, next thing we'll be doing is we'll be going back to the, probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, I'll be going back to the 463, because that'll allow me a little bit of nitrogen for greening. It'll allow me the calcium a little bit higher than everything else for growing, and it'll allow me the phosphorus. And that's what I put in last time, and typically, like I told you, I wouldn't use the lime, but everything's washed away so much and got that blossom rot. That is caused by lack of calcium. So if you see that on any of your stuff that's growing and you got that blossom rot, just know you either overwater and underwater to a point, but even with overwater and underwater, since my stuff's above the ground, that water's going at it. Even though the soil's still wet, it's going out, not like in the ground. So it shouldn't be over and underwater. It should be calcium. You just have to add a little calcium, like his lime or whatever. And just a little handful, each little thing, and it's a slow release, so you're not burning it. And it'll little by little just sink down in and just keep feeding as it needs to. And next thing you know, you'll get past that, but hopefully we'll kick into some more sun here soon. And I think maybe a week, maybe a half week to a week from now, I'll be telling you, oh my God, we never get no rain around, even though we have. Many times I'll be telling you, we don't get no rain around here because it's supposed to change dramatically. And I'm looking over at my raspberries, blueberries, and strawberries now, and they are doing absolutely good everywhere. And we've eaten a ton of the raspberries, a ton of the strawberries already. They don't even last, and they're getting pretty big. And between my grandson, my wife, me, if the neighbor comes over and she wants one and I'm walking by them, when they get that big, they just get sweet. You don't even need sugar or nothing with them. So the June berries are just going great. The everberries are growing too, but they're a smaller type of berry. But they're really doing good. We've eaten a couple blueberries off the bush, maybe a cupful in They're just ripe, but they still got a little while to come in and ripen the whole way. Once again, they're there. It's just a lack of sun photosynthesis from the sun coming down and really allowing it. And I fertilized those up a little bit today too with the berry, just a little teaspoon or two I threw in each pot just to give it a little bit more, even though they're good to go. And the raspberries, they're all there. They're red, but they're hidden by the white leaves they're growing in. The white like feathery leaves they hide in. Once we get that sun back a week or two, they'll be just pure raspberries, and I'll come back and show you some of that too. But I've got something producing on everything in the garden right now, from onions, potatoes, zucchinis, everything. Every pot's got 4 or 5 things growing in it. But I got to go by, like I said, checking for blossom rot, and then the ones that are good keep in there, and they're producing. As soon as this warm weather kicks in a little bit more and we get some more sun, I'll be harvesting. And I'm still sticking to my 2-week thing from this past weekend. I still think by next weekend, if the weather changes and gets warm and hot out, we'll be running in with a harvest of everything. So I hope you all have a good weekend. I can't remember if this is Thursday or Friday right now. I'm pretty sure it's Thursday. But hope you all have a great weekend, and anything I can help you, let me know. And go out to Jeff's Vegetable Gardening Tips on YouTube and like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Keeps the videos coming, and we have fun. And it's absolutely free. And go out on Instagram to Jeff's Gardening Tips also. We'll put pictures out. All right, thanks guys. Have a great weekend.